Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do a quick review of my rental bike, which is the BMC Roadmachine, if anyone's interested, because I think it's actually quite an interesting bike, given that it's an endurance bike, but the geometry is actually pretty unique, I think. It's kicking the trend of a lot of endurance bikes out there, and I think for most people, maybe myself included, it actually makes a better kind of all-round road bike slash race bike. But anyway, let's start at the front end. It's a bit long in the tooth now, this design. It's not the most up-to-date, so you can see the tyre clearance isn't the best. I mean, there's plenty there, but this is actually a 25, believe it or not. I haven't ridden tyres this skinny for about 10 years. I actually forgot what sort of pressures you need in these. So I think I'm running about 90 to 100 PSI in these. And these DT Swiss carbon rims are actually quite narrow. But anyway, not the most high clearance through there. You wouldn't be able to run anything bigger than a 34, I would say. Maybe a 35, but you certainly can't fit the new breed of 40s in there. This is still current, this frame design, I believe, but this is a kind of base spec one, so it's not got internal cable routing, which for a rental company is absolutely perfect. They don't want to be messing around with that, so you've just got the standard top cap. All the chimney there for all the people that can rent this bike. This is a 58, and this isn't actually, so I'm 194, 195 centimeters. This is not actually the biggest bike I could have got. They do a 61, but that's absolutely massive. The reason I chose a 58 road machine, not a 58 team machine or a 61 team machine, is that the geometry actually suits me a lot better on this bike. And looking at the geometry charts, and you might be able to notice it here, the seat tube angle is one of the steepest in any categories of road bike I've ever seen, including modern race bikes. So this is a 74.2, which is pretty much unheard of really in my size. Normally we're looking at 72.5, 73. As you know, I'm a proponent of steep seat tube angles, and this is absolutely brilliant. It just makes climbing for me so much easier, getting the weight further forward. I don't have to scoot forward on the saddle. I can stay planted in the saddle, and I find myself climbing in the saddle more and getting out of the saddle less. Most endurance bikes also have quite a slack seat tube angle, and I just don't get that. I mean, yes, it helps the seat post deflect more backwards, but if you want to shorten up the reach, and I think, in general, looking at geometry of endurance bikes, reach is shorter than race bikes. Why they then put a really laid back seat post on there, I really don't know. But the one downside of having a steep seat tube angle is that it does not deflect as much because it's not laid back. So you haven't got that mechanical advantage. But with plenty of seat posts sticking out like I have here, it's plenty comfortable enough. And even though I'm riding these skinny little tyres pumped up really hard, this bike is pretty damn comfy. Yeah, if it wasn't for the kind of snide remarks that you get if you turned up to a race on this, this would be probably, if I was doing long races or sportives, I would just go for one of these. And I think that goes for a lot of people. They're better off in endurance bike geometry. Like I said, this is not even the biggest size. The biggest size I think would be too high. That's got a massive stack of over 640. This stack for a 58 is 610, which in itself is way bigger than anything else in the race bike spectrum. So the biggest size TCR you can get, which is the one I've got, the stack is I think under 600. I think it's 596. So this is 15 mil taller than that, and this is not even the biggest size. So just gives you more flexibility to play around with bike fit at the front end. PF86 bottom bracket shell, my favorite standard. It's wide, it doesn't creak, and if they're in tolerance, it just works. You can see how wide the down tube is. This is actually quite a stiff pedaling bike. The down tube is an absolute drain pipe. Look at the girth on that. I can't even fit my hand around it. Damn. So obviously someone's stuck it on the deck and broken a shifter, which is why they've got a 105 shifter on there. Fairly standard cockpit on this one. Pro. Handlebars, don't think it's standard. And a BNC stem. Seat post is really nice. It's quite flexible. It's got a 2-position cradle, so you can have it in a forward offset or a backwards offset. At the moment, I think it's set up with a forward offset. And as you can see, because of that steep seat tube angle, I've got the saddle dead in line. Dead in the middle. Normally I have to run it all the way forward. Again, on the rear, not the biggest tyre clearance. This is obviously a 25, and it measures about 25. It's pretty skinny, but you could fit a 32 in there, no problem. Maybe a 34. Replaceable dropouts, I always like that. So the threaded parts of the fork and the rear are completely replaceable. I really like that. Just practical, especially for a rental bike company. One thing I did have was the seat post was constantly slipping. And they said that is quite a common issue with that, and it's not helped by the fact that it's such a steep angle. It will tend to slip over bumps. I just hate these integrated wedge seat posts. So you get to it under there, it's a 4mm Allen bolt. And when I was at the Colnago hotel, the UAE hotel, I had to go and bother the mechanics to give me a load of carbon grip paste. A load of carbon grip paste and probably more torque than is spec'd was required to get that to stop slipping, but now it's all sorted. So anyway, I quite like this bike. It's a bit of a mongrel. Enduro bike head angle, but a very steep seat tube angle makes climbing a lot easier. And I think all enduro bikes should do this. Get the rider further forward. Yes, you can shorten the reach from the bottom bracket to the bars, but then you put the rider further back and close the hip. It just doesn't make sense. Very similar geometry, coincidentally, to the Framework bike that I've designed with John from Framework. So that's got a slightly steeper seat tube angle at 75, which is basically the same as this, by 0.8 degrees. A similar stack and a similar reach, but I'll actually be riding a slightly longer stem on that and running it slammed because I don't want any spacers. But they're quite a nice practical bike, especially for a rental company with the replaceable dropout parts and everything. So, you know, if someone rounds off an axle or buggers the threads, it's not writing off the frame. You just put a new insert in. PF86, pretty easy to work on. Pretty light as well with these carbon rims. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.